Xiao Yan and I were the founding emperor and empress, bound by nothing but mutual loathing. He stabbed my male favorite to death. I poisoned his beloved concubine. Reborn into our younger days. I set my sights on seizing the empire once more, only to find no ally worthy of standing beside me. Gritting my teeth, I resolved to marry Xiao Yan a second time. At worst, I'd spare his concubines from poison this lifetime. But the moment I pulled open my courtyard gate, Xiao Yan stood outside, jaw tight with rage. Foolish oafs, all of you, marry me again, and rule beside me as you did in our past life. He stormed inside and slammed a document onto the table. Your subordinates beg you to petition the throne to open cross-border trade with Western regions and sell beef to the people of Tianzhu. I unfurled the crumpled report in my palm, rendered speechless by exasperation. The memo earnestly implored me, the future empress, to hand-copy Buddhist scriptures for the Taoist our empress. Xiao Yan shot me a single glance. Like two barren, wretched wastelands struck by thunder and lightning, two kindred spirits trapped in endless misfortune collapsed into each other's arms and wept bitterly. A single oil lamp lit the room, only us two inside. There was no time to unpack the betrayals of our former lives. No leisure to hash out fresh grudges for this new lifetime. We cried until our hearts shook the heavens, blind to the passing of time. Once our tears dried, Xiao Yan tugged loose his collar, swiped roughly at his wet cheeks, and steeled his resolve. Marry me again, and stand and strive alongside me just as before. I sniffled and locked eyes with him. Beneath his docile bearing lurked vengeful calculation. Just as my reputation as a virtuous wife masked towering ambition, the grievances of our past seemed set aside for the sake of supreme power. Without hesitation, I gave my answer. I agree. We struck an instant bargain and forged an alliance. That dark, windy night, he vanished into the blackness. Pausing before departing, he murmured low, "If you cannot bear parting with your companion, I shall spare your male favorite's life in this life." I lingered by the window long after he left, staring down at my own hands, pale, soft and uncalloused from years of poring over state documents, unstained by blood. I was merely a sheltered young noblewoman, unskilled at writing or warfare. My only talent lay in reading and manipulating human hearts. In our past life, I'd shielded him from treachery, won over officials and built his network of allies. While Xiao Yan was a born military genius, he led troops at 17, pacified the Northwest by 20, and crushed 3 powerful rebel feudal lords with ruthless ironclad tactics at 25. His blade was swift, merciless, unerring. I needed his military might to cut down every foe I could not reach myself. Paired together, we held all the pieces needed to conquer an entire realm. We'd built that empire side by side once before, yet once the throne was ours, there was no more common ground left to unite us. In the 10th year of his reign as emperor, I caught him abed with a palace maid. He'd stumbled over himself to swear nothing untoward had passed between them, yet fresh red love marks ringed the maid's neck, glaring and unmissable. Proud by nature, I, Qin Qianqian, would brook no betrayal. That very night, I summoned a strapping young paramour to my chambers. When Xiao Yan burst in to find us in bed together, he coughed up blood from sheer fury, hatred blazing in his eyes. "I told you nothing happened. Why can you never trust me?" Curled beside my lover, I replied calmly, "Just drunken mischief. Pay it no mind." From that day, the imperial couple's bond fractured irreparably. He took the maid as his noble consort Rong, lavishing favor and knightly company upon her. I kept my own male lovers sheltered in private villas. Yet neither could strike down the other. Our intertwined powers woven during our conquest of the empire made any drastic move too risky to attempt. Later, I fell pregnant with Xiao Yan's child. I was far from foolish enough to confuse imperial bloodlines. Though he knew the babe was his, he turned a blind eye as his concubine poisoned my unborn infant. The day after my miscarriage, I stormed into Consort Rong's quarters, forced her head back, and poured an entire vial of fatal crane-top red arsenic down her throat. She shrieked and perished before my eyes, bleeding from every orifice as the toxin ate away her insides. To avenge his concubine's death, Xiao Yan broke into my secret villa and drove his blade through my favorite male companion. Night after night, Crippling stomach pain plagued my sleep, yet he'd crawl into my bed to cradle me and whisper soothingly, "Now we are even. Let us hate and cling to one another until death." The inner palace devolved into mutual ruin, while imperial officials split into clashing factions at court. Neither would bow first, dragging out a bloody, decades-long stalemate that lasted until our final breaths. On a frigid winter's day decades later, he wasted away coughing up blood in one palace hall. And I was bedridden with fatal illness in the next. Our son Yu bore the burden of tending to both his dying parents, rushing between two separate palaces. A bitter irony. The two half-crazed conquerors who'd spent a lifetime warring against each other breathed their last on the same night. Separated only by a single partition wall, even on our deathbeds, we rasped final orders to you: never tend to the other's lovers. And bury the founding emperor and empress side by side in the imperial mausoleum, bound together in death to spite each other for eternity. How absurd our lives had been. Early the next morning, a servant announced Xiao Yan's arrival. I did not pause mid-pour as tea steamed in my cup when he strode into the room, clad in black silk brocade that made him look like a drawn, unsheathed sword. Unattended by attendants, he set a cloth-wrapped bundle heavily upon my table with a dull thud. "What is this?" I asked, confused. "Bridal betrothal gifts," he said bluntly. I nearly choked on my tea. "You are in an unseemly hurry. Last lifetime you waited 3 full months to formally propose." His face remained impassive as he spoke a sentence that sent my heart lurching. "Your father sent back all my engagement gifts in our past life." Tucked a slip of note inside the returned chest. Care to guess its words? My breath caught short. What did it say? He locked his gaze onto mine and enunciated every syllable slowly. "This Xiao whelp is nothing remarkable." My cheeks burned with embarrassment. Why must I atone for my father's arrogant blunder in this new life? The insulting note had been penned by him, not me. Xiao Yan scoffed, unconvinced. "I shall not give your father the chance to reject my proposal a second time." He peeled away the black cloth to reveal a dark ebony chest. When the lid lifted, jewels glinted bright enough to fill the whole room. Deeds to farmlands, shops and merchant caravan shares across the northwest, worth 100,000 taels of silver, added to 3 urban manors and 2 countryside villas I own. The full dowry totals 200,000 taels. I gaped in shock. His previous life betrothal had been 100,000 taels. Enough to stir gossip across the capital. Now he'd doubled the sum entirely. Have you lost your senses? More awaits. Ignoring my question, he pulled a rolled scroll from his sleeve and unfurled it. I drafted this alliance pact overnight last night. 1 copy for each of us. Sealed in ink, binding us never to renege. The terms were concise yet cutting to the bone. Xiao Yan and Xianqian shall wed to conquer the realm together. Upon victory, Xiao Yan ascends the throne as emperor and Xianqian reigns as empress. State authority is split evenly. Xiao Yan commands military troops, border defense and warfare. I oversee civil appointments, treasury, finance and foreign diplomacy. All pivotal state rulings require joint consent from both parties. Neither shall meddle in the other's private affairs nor harm each other's trusted confidants. Should either break the oath, heaven and earth shall abandon them. Cursed to endless torment for all lifetimes to come. Endless torment across reincarnations. I repeated with a cold sneer. You set harsh terms indeed. Learned from you, he retorted. I dipped my brush and signed my name in neat, steady strokes. Xiao Yan's signature followed. Bold and unrestrained as always. Once finished, he snatched up both copies of the pact and held them to the candle flame to burn to ash. I shot to my feet. What are you doing? Staring into the smoldering cinders. He lowered his voice. Documents like this are dangerous keepsakes. Our word to each other suffices. I fixed him with a long hard stare before settling back into my seat. Fine. This was the ruthless Xiao Yan I knew. Never one to yield an inch in a contest of cruelty. The next 3 months slipped by in a flurry of busy scheming. We covertly laid political groundwork, bought off loyal allies, and maneuvered between competing noble factions. Memories of our past life lingered like a shard of buried glass, pricking me with every step yet granting foresight of every looming fate. Which officials would turn traitor? Which military campaigns were doomed to defeat? Which river required flood dikes? A deadly plague due in 3 years. A joint Western regions border invasion 5 years hence. And a catastrophic Jiangnan earthquake 7 years away. All critical intelligence for Xiao Yan's military ambitions. In exchange for my foresight, he furnished me with unassailable military backing, the power to stand against the entire imperial court even if every minister turned against me. We were two venomous serpents, coiled around one another, reliant yet wary. I understood my father's initial disdain for Xiao Yan. Noble concubinely had once put forward a marriage offer, aiming to betroth me to the third imperial prince. In his eyes, a royal match was the only worthy station for his daughter. To him, Xiao Yan was nothing but a rough-born general forged on bloody battlefields. Far beneath my station, yet I'd fallen for Xiao Yan at first sight in our past life. A passionate, whirlwind romance. On our wedding day, my father found fault with everything about him, only preening proudly once Xiao Yan claimed the throne and crowned me empress. He held the same bias this lifetime, yet swallowed his pride faced with Xiao Yan's lavish double betrothal fortune. As my wedding drew near, my mother dragged me to the god of matchmakers' temple to pray for a smooth marital fate. Red silk ribbons draped the sacred wishing tree like countless scarlet serpents twisting in the breeze. After we finished our devotions, a gust of wind sent one ribbon drifting straight into my arms. I glanced down at the crimson writing seared into the fabric. I ask for one heart, to grow old side by side without parting, Xiao Yan. My eyes widened. I'd never visited this temple in our prior life. Never guessed Xiao Yan once harbored such innocent longing. My mother gasped in delight. This must be divine providence. I turned toward the matchmaker's statue, its painted face smiling warmly as if it had tied our wrists together with an unbreakable red thread of fate. Our wedding arrived soon after. The bridal chamber glowed with tall red wedding candles once all guests departed, faint wine fumes clinging to Xiao Yan as he stepped inside. The corners of his eyes flushed red. As we drank the nuptial goblets, I caught my own reflection trapped within his dark pupils. Two ghosts clinging to young flesh. Two survivors of a bitter past ready to upend the entire empire once more. Xiao Yan, I began. I burned the verbal alliance before our wedding. Yet one rule I must state plainly. Speak your terms. I shall never poison your concubines in this life. I locked eyes with him firmly. But harm any of my loved ones, and I will strip you of your chance at the imperial throne forever. Far from angered, he let out a low chuckle. Agreed. This empire belongs equally to us. Neither may seize sole power. His voice dropped rough and deep. I studied him then, the same ferocious, blood-stained dragon of a man, yet for once speaking honest words. Unaccountably, heat rose to my cheeks. Our wedding night grew heated and tangled. And between ragged breaths he whispered against my ear, "Has your former favorite ever laid in this bed?" A burst of heat exploded behind my temples. My body pinned helpless beneath him. My past lover had been tender and gentle, Xiao Yan domineering and fierce, each pleasing in their own way, but his sudden question flooded me with bashfulness. Spotting my flustered state, he chuckled low. "Seems I win your favor by far." The words burned like hot branding iron across my skin, and I nipped his shoulder in petty retaliation. He was merely a trivial amusement to pass idle hours. No need to compete with him. Drained after bathing, I collapsed into rest while Xiao Yan remained inexplicably buoyant, humming a carefree tune as he practiced sword at dawn the next morning. On our third day of marriage, an unforeseen imperial edict arrived. The emperor dispatched Xiao Yan to Jiangnan to eradicate coastal Japanese pirate raiders. A campaign slated to last no fewer than 4 months. Yet the northern barbarian Huns were set to invade exactly 3 months later, pivotal battle through which Xiao Yan secured full command of the northern border legions in our past life. All my prearranged preparations were thrown into disarray by the emperor's abrupt order. That night, my hidden palace spy delivered the answer in 4 words. Recommended by concubinely, vicious woman. I'd extended peace toward her faction in our previous life after wedding Xiao Yan, having received no concessions from me this time. She'd struck back in spite. Before dawn broke on his departure, I fitted his battle armor and spoke only one line. "Leave all capital matters in my hands." He lifted his arm once, before every campaign in our past life. He'd pulled me into an embrace, This lifetime his hand hovered empty in midair before settling for a light pat on my shoulder. I trust you. Once Xiao Yan left for the south, my father and I overhauled the entire capital's officialdom. I mapped out every competent and corrupt minister across the 6 government departments, planting my secret informants strategically throughout the bureaucracy. My father watched my machinations pale-faced with fright. I've climbed to Left Chancellor by walking a cautious middle road. Yet you weave a sprawling spy network across the capital. One misstep and our entire clan faces execution. I smiled sweetly, content to stop at Chancellor. What of ascending to the imperial throne? He stiffened sharply at my bait, and I leaned in to coax him. Sit upon the throne, and every future sovereign shall carry our bloodline. He drew a sharp breath, then straightened his spine and cleared his throat. 40 years of age is prime time to gamble for greatness. I nodded, satisfied. In our past life I'd hidden my imperial ambitions, forcing my father to slowly catch on and aid me timidly. This newfound resolve made him bolder and swifter to act. Soon after, stacks of impeachment petitions accusing concubine Li's father of abducting commoner women flooded the emperor's desk, though the aging incompetent ruler wished to shield his beloved concubine. Mounting ministerial outrage forced his hand. Concubine Li was demoted 2 ranks and confined to seclusion within the harem. Her son, the 3rd prince, forced into meek submission. News of Xiao Yan's swift victory over southern pirates arrived in the 2nd month of his campaign, paired with a short personal letter. Raiders routed. Coastal defenses secured. Returning shortly. Do not worry. I huffed coldly. I worried for no one. His early return meant he would reach the northern border in time for the Hun invasion as planned. Spreading a military map across my desk, I finalized half the northern campaign preparations. Grain allocation from the Ministry of Revenue, troop deployment via the Ministry of War, and a fully operational relay messenger system along all border routes. The remaining half rested entirely on Xiao Yan's own efforts. His family hailed from prominent northern military clans, granting him long-standing prestige and connections within the northern garrison. The only path to fully absorb those legions under his personal command. My father stepped into my study with a bowl of warm sweet soup inside. Still awake at this hour. Xiao Yan is coming home soon. Glancing at the unopened letter beside my map, he fell silent a moment. Your husband is a peerless military genius. Such men are never easy to control. I sipped the soup calmly. If control proves impossible, eliminate the threat entirely. He stared at me. Words stuck in his throat, then shook his head. You are far crueler than your old father. I said nothing. My ruthlessness stemmed from the agonizing betrayals of our past life. I'd remarried him for his irreplaceable military prowess, yet would never abide fresh betrayal again. Xiao Yan returned on the 3rd day of the 6th lunar month, 3 days ahead of schedule, leaner and sun-darkened, triumphant after his southern victories. A fresh jagged scar slicing across his brow, perilously close to his eye. When I frowned over the wound, he brushed it off. A trivial scratch. That night our intimacy was passionate and turbulent. Tangled emotions roiling within me, too muddled to untangle. Only soothed by clinging tight and sinking my teeth into his skin. Mid-affection. My fingers traced the new scar on his brow. I remembered all 13 blade wounds and 7 arrow scars mapping his body from our past. Countless smaller scrapes and gashes crisscrossing his chest and back. One lethal gash barely an inch from his heart. Now joined by this fresh injury. I'd visited the northern front only once in our former lifetime. Spoiled from a sheltered upbringing and fleeing the bitter freezing frontier after merely half a month, while Xiao Yan endured harsh field conditions year-round. Enduring non-stop hardship as old wounds split open beneath new injuries. No amount of foresight could replicate the brutal toll his conquests exacted from his body. Days later, the aging emperor chanced upon the 3rd prince in an indecent tryst with his personal eunuch while out walking. The prince was immediately stripped of royal rank and reduced to commoner status, and the emperor collapsed from apoplexy. As Xiao Yan finalized his northern campaign arrangements, he turned toward me. You're doing, indeed, risking alerting our foes. I sneered. Once the snake flees its den, strike it dead to cut all future trouble. Concubine Li's plot to ship him south had nearly derailed our plans. Those who harmed our interests must pay their due. When northern border unrest broke out, I summoned Xiao Yan back to the capital. All treasury grain is allocated. Military deployment seals finalized. After a lengthy pause, he reached out to pinch my chin between his fingers, dark eyes unfathomable. Qian, how many schemes have you woven across this lifetime? I smiled faintly. Enough to consign any man, including you, to a gruesome end. He loosened his grip, the corner of his mouth tugging upward in unexpected softness. That is all I need to hear. Half a month later, Xiao Yan marched north to war once more, pausing mid-step to turn back before the entire household staring servants. He pulled me into a tight embrace. Wait for my return. My heart skipped a beat. In our past life, he'd always held me before departing for battle, a tender bond worn away entirely by decades of mutual betrayal. I remained rooted by the gate long after his horse hooves faded into the distance, until my mate urged me indoors against the chill wind. A sudden memory surfaced. For his final northern campaign in our past life, I'd refused to see him off, drinking and carousing with my male lover within my villa while he waited outside my gate for a full hour before riding away alone. That battle left him gravely wounded, an arrow piercing his shoulder an inch from his heart. I'd been mid-go with my companion when the casualty report arrived, setting the scroll beneath my inkstone and continuing our chess game unperturbed. Lying awake all night haunted by his bleeding form, yet visiting his sickbed only to return to my lover the next dawn. Better I wrong him than he wrong me had been our bitter unspoken creed for the rest of our reign. 37 days into his northern campaign, victory dispatches reached the capital. I'd predicted the Hun invasion route perfectly, prepositioned ambushes catching the nomadic raiders off guard, allowing Xiao Yan to pursue and slay 50,000 enemy soldiers while seizing 3 border passes. The imperial court erupted in celebration. Confined to his sickbed, the ailing emperor praised the triumph 3 times running. On the same day, Xiao Yan was titled Grand General who pacifies the north, granted full command of the 200,000 northern border troops exactly as we planned. I relaxed in my courtyard beneath warm sunshine as the confidential report landed in my hands. Every step unfolding per our design. Xiao Yan remained stationed on the northern frontier for nearly a full year. Our correspondence constant. His letters read like terse military briefings. Northern front stable. No cause for worry. Huns sued for peace. Proposal rejected. Heavy snow. Bitter cold. Once in a while a postscript appeared. How fares the capital? My replies were equally concise. Capital affairs proceed smoothly. Land surveys completed. 30,000 taels in new tax revenue secured. Envoy dispatched to western regions. Cross-border trade finalized. Occasionally I added a single line. Take good care of yourself. I folded every finished letter away into a hidden compartment at the bottom of my jewelry chest. 17 notes stacked neatly by year's end. Catching me mid-stirrage, my father teased. Hardly apart long and already lovesick. I only study military intelligence from his dispatches, I retorted, tucking the chest shut. He rolled his eyes. I've lived long enough to tell a battle report apart from a love letter. Leaning closer, he lowered his voice. Shall I send spies north to keep watch over Xiao Yan? No need. You trust him fully. I fell silent. I did not know the answer myself. Only that we needed each other to claim the throne, and that was sufficient. Xiao Yan returned to the capital the 3rd lunar month of the following year. Northern snows thawing and winter jasmine blooming across every street. He rode into town atop a fine steed clad in full battle armor, followed by 800 elite personal guards. Lined streets packed with cheering commoners shouting General Xiao is invincible, and long live chants echoing everywhere, frowning at the treasonous imperial praise. I stood atop the city tower watching the procession far below. Sensing my gaze, he lifted his head, his dark eyes locking onto mine across the throng of citizens and mounted soldiers. A faint genuine smile tugging his lips. By dusk he returned to the manor fresh from reporting to the palace, armor still unremoved after hours at court. I ordered hot water prepared and a feast laid out. After he bathed and changed into civilian robes, we ate in silence. His left index finger tapping absently against the tabletop, a thoughtful habit formed inside military command tents. I set down my chopsticks. Something troubles you. He sobered instantly. The emperor's health declines rapidly. Imperial physicians predict he will not survive this winter. My heart jolted. In our past life, the old emperor had died the following spring. Xiao Yan's surging prestige had forced unseen rivals to hasten his demise. By the 9th day of the 10th lunar month, autumn winds swept through the capital as the emperor's condition plummeted. Slipping into near-permanent unconsciousness, the crown prince stepped in to oversee state affairs. Until the Minister of Revenue faced impeachment for embezzling military funds, what should have been a routine dismissal escalated when the crown prince ordered a full investigation, uncovering graft spanning multiple government ministries, implicating several of his personal confidants and the crown prince tutor's own nephew. Desperate to shield his faction, the prince shifted all blame onto the revenue minister and ordered his entire clan executed. On the eve of his execution, the condemned minister penned a blood-stained confession detailing the crown prince's corruption and obstruction of justice. Read aloud before the entire imperial assembly to explosive court outrage. The crown prince's reputation crumbled to ruin overnight. Noblemen openly murmuring he was unfit to inherit the throne. With the third prince deposed, fourth dead in infancy, fifth and sixth princes still toddlers, no viable royal heir remained to rule. A bold suggestion soon circulated among ministers. General Zhao's unmatched military glory and popular acclaim make him fit to reign, while royal loyalists protested his non-imperial lineage. Most officials sided with the general. The imperial Zhao clan had long lost common folks' loyalty amid famine and endless warfare. Bedridden, the dying emperor trembled with rage yet possessed no power to alter the tide. On the 9th of the 11th lunar month, the old emperor passed away, leaving a final imperial edict naming Xiao Yan his successor. Many cried forgery, yet 300,000 loyal soldiers camped outside the capital gates silenced all dissent. History was always written by victorious conquerors. My mother only learned of our grand coup upon news of Xiao Yan's impending coronation, terrified yet elated at the prospect of becoming the future empress's mother, a station far loftier than mere noble spouse to a chancellor. During the coronation preparations, I posted heavy guards around my parents' estate to ward off vengeful former imperial clan assassins. Yet my mother was wounded in a knife ambush returning home from a temple pilgrimage regardless. Rushing to her side, I found her shaken but unharmed, led to meet her savior moments later. This young gentleman took the blade meant for me, she said. My pupils shrank sharply at the sight of him. Lu Yuanzhou, my former male favorite. I permitted my mother to shelter him within our estate. Curious what unseen twist of fate had brought him to the capital years ahead of schedule. Still unconscious from blood loss upon our return to the chancellor's mansion, Lu Yuanzhou won my mother's instant fondness, who praised his peerless delicate features and planned to arrange a suitable marriage for him once he recovered. When awake, he confessed bashfully to my mother his long-hidden affection for me, leaving her scrambling to hush his reckless words. I know Qianqian's wisdom matches the future emperor's prowess, he added softly. I arched an eyebrow in response. Before long, surviving remnants of the fallen imperial clan launched a wave of targeted assassinations, including an attempt on Xiao Yan's life. As servants delivered the news, Lu Yuanzhou sat reading calmly, proposing I seize the chaos to strip Xiao Yan's power and seize full imperial control myself. I gestured him forward. He leaned docilely against my knees, eyes soft and obedient until I drove a dagger straight into his chest without hesitation. As his body went limp across my lap, I stroked his beautiful features and murmured, "Pets must know their place. Grow fangs and reach for your master's throne, and you pay with your life." He conspired with the fallen royals to stage the assassination attempt on my mother and murder Xiao Yan. His innocent demeanor nothing but a practiced mask worn by a power-hungry schemer reborn from our past life. Xiao Yan arrived to find the corpse laid before me, fleeting triumph flickering across his face before he schooled his features into mild reserve. I had no hand in his death this lifetime. I smiled without reply. A few days later he summoned me to the palace to try on my Empress Phoenix coronation robes. His own imperial dragon regalia laid opposite mine inside the Qianyuan hall, matching deep black fabric woven with glinting golden cloud patterns, solemn and stately like twin stone monuments bathed in moonlight. He took my hand and sat beside me on the palace steps, his palm warm against mine, joy shining clear in his eyes. We've seized the empire once again together. I leaned my head onto his shoulder and smiled, rare peace settling over us beneath moonlit quiet. After a long pause he spoke low. Did you lace the nuptial wine with poison? I hummed an affirmative. I'd prepared a mind-controlling parasite toxin to bind your loyalty and end all future betrayal. At that instant, the clatter of clashing armor and drawn blades echoed outside the hall. Tension thickening the air within, he let out a bitter laugh. Must married rulers live trapped in endless suspicion? You brought your own troops to the palace as well, did you not? Neither of us intended bloodshed, yet both clung to cautious defensive safeguards born of lifetimes of hurt and distrust. After a lengthy silence he asked hoarsely, "Have you never forgotten our lost child?" I raised my hand and struck him hard across the cheek. The sharp crack ringing off the stone floor, teeth grinding with unbridled rage. How dare you speak of that infant? Our elder son you was bright and sweet, and I'd eagerly anticipated my second pregnancy. Even picking up discarded needlework to sew a tiger head infant cap stitched full of my fond hopes until a poisoned herbal miscarriage tonic dissolved my unborn child into blood and flesh. No imperial physician would dare tamper with an empress's prenatal medicine without Xiao Yan's consent. How could I ever forgive him? Driven to hysterics, I pounced and struck and kicked, unleashing 2 lifetimes of pent-up hatred upon his unmoving frame. Once exhausted, I clutched his collar, searching his eyes for a flicker of remorse or regret. Finding only tender fondness and sorrow instead. Staggering backward, I mumbled in confusion, "This cannot be right," collapsing onto the frigid palace stone floor. Shivers racked my frame as he knelt to gather me into his arms and comfort me gently. "Qian," he began cautiously. "That child was never mine." His words split open the core of my decades-long hatred like a blade slicing rotten flesh. Not his. Then whose? A single loathsome name surfaced from the depths of my memory. Lu Yuanzhou. Years of brutal warfare drained my vitality to the breaking point. Xiao Yan continued hoarsely. Physically capable of intimacy, yet permanently sterile, unable to father children. I shook violently. I'd personally forced contraceptive medicine down Lu Yuanzhou's throat once before. He must have planned the deception from the very start, infiltrating my side to plant his heir inside me all along. Nausea surged and I gagged violently. He pulled me tighter into his embrace. "What would you have done had I told you the truth?" I'd aborted the baby without a moment's hesitation, gripping his wrist until my nails sank into his skin. I rasped, "Why hide the truth from me all these years?" Bloodshot eyes glistened with unshed tears. How could I admit I'd been rendered barren by battle wounds? A broken man unfit to sire an heir. I paced outside your palace gate hundreds of times for a full day and night, mustering the courage to confess, yet when I finally resolved to knock, I saw you curled up with your paramour. He broke down crying like a vulnerable child stripped of all imperial dignity. I'd worked up every ounce of bravery, yet lost my chance forever. Both Lu Yuanzhou and consort Rome had been pawns in a calculated plot to tear us apart. 2 proud souls too stubborn to set aside pride and talk openly, letting petty manipulation spiral into decades of lethal mutual hatred. Our grudges cemented beyond repair. After our tears subsided, he rested his head in the crook of my neck. "Will you look down on me now?" Never. The war had stolen his fertility as its cruelest price, and standing in his place I too would bury such a humiliating secret forever. When I learned the truth, all I felt was heartache for you. A bitter smile tugged his mouth. I coughed up blood upon hearing your terminal illness news in our past life. Loving hearts grieve first and foremost for each other's pain. It took me more than a decade to understand such a simple truth. Yet we'd spent our lives like prickly hedgehogs, choosing to wound each other rather than bow our pride. On his coronation day, I handed him a goblet of wine. "Steady your nerves. Do not fidget with your dragon robes as you did last lifetime." He drained the cup in one gulp and raised an eyebrow. "Where is the antidote to your parasitic toxin?" I nodded toward his empty glass. "You've just drunk it." Hand in hand we ascended the imperial dais amid deafening long-live chants. 2 souls bound by 2 lifetimes of tangled love and hate finally laid to rest beneath the imperial crown. In the 2nd year of his reign, I gave birth to our 2nd son Yu. Free of hidden plots and distrust, the inner palace prospered in harmony while state reforms I'd drafted advanced far faster than in our prior reign. Xiao Yan issued an imperial edict establishing joint dual sovereign rule, granting me full legitimate authority as reigning empress to enact all my policies. Our only persistent trouble remained falling ill in tandem whenever cold weather struck. a lingering after effect of dying on the same night in our past life. Yet you no longer needed to race between two separate sick rooms tending to his warring parents.